Well, hello, my name is Jim Royal. I'm a huge Beatles and Elvis Presley fan and basically classic rock in general. So if you haven't already, please subscribe to my channel. If you could do a thumbs up, that's always most appreciated. And feel free to leave comments. I always enjoy reading them and I do my best to try to respond in a timely manner. Today what I wanted to do is I wanted to do an album review on a classic solo Beatle album. This one comes from Ringo Starr. It's his 8th album and it is called Stop and Smell the Roses. And it was originally released back on October 27th of 1981. It was on Boardwalk Records here in the States and an RCA in the UK. And what's going on here is he's doing kind of a cop theme, you know, law enforcement, stop and smell the roses. And there's other songs on here that also kind of talk about, you know, the law enforcement or just taking the time and doing something, you know, telling someone what to do. Alright, so let's take a look at the back. You can see him wearing the cop uniform. And in fact, there are different promotional spots for Ringo where he is wearing the uniform. And originally, this album was early pressing supposedly had scratch and sniff on the roses, so you'd smell the roses after you'd scratch them, which I thought was cool. This was an original album that I actually bought. This was the first Ringo album I ever bought, and I bought this as a cutout, you can see that, and I bought it a few years after the album actually came out. I wasn't sure how good it was going to be, big Beatle fan, so I thought, alright, the price is right. I took it home. I didn't have really the greatest record player in my bedroom. I listened to it and I really wasn't too impressed with it at the time. I just put it away. It was only years later when I would hear the selected cuts on the Beatle channel on Sirius Radio that I would say, hey, this is pretty good. So anyway, that's that. I'm going to show you the vinyl. Okay, and then the back side, I really like the label. I think it's really nice. And then you've got some nice liner notes. Ringo does have a lot of help from his friends, which really helps out this album. And he had a lot of people who contributed songs and various producers. The people who produced the songs wrote the material. But what I like about this album, which I have to say, is that this album is unified anyway. Sometimes when you have all this different producers and every which way, all the songs sound differently, it has this unified sound anyway. And there's also there's horns throughout this album, and there's also backing vocals, sometimes female vocalists, which also kind of keeps it together in two. It's not overproduced, it's not like, you know, too many overdubs on stuff. It just all is very even and it sounds good. Very consistent. So this is a CD version that I picked up. I got this recently. I've always kind of wanted this. It was, by the time I was buying some of his stuff, it was out of print. This is from 1994. This is called the Right Stuff label. And there are 6 bonus tracks on there, which are pretty cool. The Record Store Day that we just had, April of 2023, they re-released the album finally. It's a double record now, and you can get the bonus tracks, and then they had limited CD version also of it. There was 500 CDs, and I think 2,500 records. So that's the other reason I wanted to do this, in case if you like this, and you know, you could still go out and get it. But this one's out of print. I got this on eBay recently. This was the original album. It was supposed to be called Can't Fight Lightning, and the lady at the bottom is his future wife, Barbara Bach. He was dating her at the time. He met her on the set of Caveman, where they were making a movie together. And for whatever reason, there was some disagreements that he had with the original label that he was doing, you know, the recording for. It was initially signed to Portrait Records and CBS. And then, you know, he went with the new label, and then they changed the whole concept of the album. And then there's some pictures there too that were outtakes. Okay. Alright, so how well did this do? Well, the album didn't really do too well. He was riding on some failures from before. He had Ringo the Fourth and Bad Boy, which didn't do too well. So he was really trying to make, you know, a comeback musically with this album. This album got up to number 98 on the U.S. charts. It didn't really do too well in the UK. In fact, there's a record chain there called HMV, and their London store. They said that during the busy Christmas season when this album came out, only 30 copies were sold, which is unfortunate. Alright, so let's talk about this. So John Lennon was originally supposed to have contributed to this album. He had two songs. One is Life Begins at 40, which is kind of a country number, as he says, that would have been perfect for Ringo. And that song, if you want to hear that, John Lennon's demo, that's on the John Lennon Anthology. And then a song called Nobody Told Me, which later would appear on Milk and Honey. John was set to record with Ringo. They were going to go to a studio January 14th of 1981 and do the recording for these songs. Unfortunately, that didn't happen. His life was taken from us way too soon, and Ringo was heartbroken and didn't want to record the songs. Alright, so let's talk about the first song that starts off the album. It is Private Property. This is a Paul McCartney number, and Paul McCartney brought with him for his songs, he brought Linda McCartney and he brought Lawrence Juber. Paul McCartney plays bass and piano on here. Lawrence Juber, the Wings guitarist, plays acoustic and electric guitars, and then Linda sings backup with Paul, and then there's a guy named Howie Casey on here, also from Paul's, gang, that does the saxophones. Silly Love Songs is something, a lot of the horns that Paul would have on his albums, Howie Casey would contribute. So he contributed that. There were also other female vocalists on here. Sheila Casey, I'm assuming that's Howie Casey's wife, and then Leslie Lavano Parisier. So that happens on a few of these songs that Paul contributes, and that's pretty cool. Private Property, again, this is interesting, enforcing the law thing. I'll read you the lyrics. It says, private property, don't run off with it. You'll be breaking the law. Love monopoly, my philosophy. Don't go fooling with private property. She's mine, she belongs to me. And we'll get on fine as long as you agree that she's my private property. So, equating a woman to something that he owns. But basically shouting out to all those men, hey, stay off. Hands off of her. It's a nice Paul McCartney number, and it's perfectly suited for Ringo, and it's a nice opener for this album. Next song is called Wrack My Brain. This is a George Harrison number. I love this number. Talk about a wonderful tune. I just think this is fabulous. This was the big single off of this. It got up to number 38 on our U.S. charts, our top 40 charts here in America. It was the last time that Ringo charted one of his singles that high. It also did pretty well in other countries too, the single. It got up to number 17 in South Africa, number 10 in Belgium. It got up to number 32 in Switzerland. So I think that's pretty cool. Very catchy number, very nice. George is all over it. He actually flew to George's studio and recorded it. And I just think it's just excellent. Really a favorite of mine. You've got George playing lead guitar and acoustic guitar on this. And let's see, he's got a lot of his regular people that were recording with him at the time, like Herbie Flowers playing bass and tuba, Al Cooper playing piano, electric guitar, Ray Cooper, piano, percussion, synthesizer. George Harrison also does backing vocals on there with Ray. I can't say enough about it. Check it out. I would hope that there would be a vocal out there of George doing that. I would have loved to have heard that with him. But definitely best song, my favorite song on the album. Alright, next song on here is called Drumming Is My Madness. This is from Harry Nilsson, who not only was a good friend of John Lennon and his drinking buddy during the Lost Weekend, but he was also Ringo's good friend too. And he supplied this number to Ringo. it's perfectly suited for Ringo. I mean, you could tell it was perfectly written for him. It's interesting because there are two parts in here where actually Ringo does a drum solo, which is pretty rare for him. And it's kind of comical too. He says he's making reference to a song that was popular at the time a little bit before called Do You Think I'm Sexy by Rod Stewart. He says that, and he says Try a Little Tenderness, which is another song that was good, popular. Van Dyke Parks, which is interesting, actually did the arrangement on here. I thought that was pretty cool. And Van Dyke Parks, if you're familiar with him, he did some work with Brian Wilson and the Beach Boys. And there are some numbers here where Jim Keltner is, playing drums, even though Ringo is also playing drums. So I thought that was interesting too. That would later kind of be what would happen sometimes with Ringo albums. I like Drumming Is My Madness. It's perfect for Ringo, and it's a nice song for him. Attention is the fourth song. I think this was the second single. It didn't do well. This is Paul McCartney number, and gotta tell you, this is my favorite Paul McCartney number on here of the two that he wrote. This looks like it would be perfect for Pipes of Peace if he didn't give it to Ringo on the second half of that album. Kind of like An Average Person, Sweetest Little Show type number, kind of quirky like that. So he says, everybody needs attention, everybody wants to smile, everybody needs a mention, attention, attention for a while. He says, come on baby, give it all you've got, get into the power of the plot, we'll only get it if we try, give it your attention for a while. Nice number, fun. You've got, let's see, you've got Paul playing bass, piano, and percussion. Lawrence Juber is doing guitars on here, and then again the backing vocals. You've got Linda doing them with Sheila and Leslie. Yeah, nice. So this album, it flows real well. It's a fun album, and that's what I like. It's a period piece for Ringo. It's all of these songs, even though they're by multiple people and different producers and stuff, it all just joins really well, and it's a fun album, and that's really what Ringo albums I think should be, right? All right, next song is called Stop and Take the Time to Smell the Roses. This is the other, whole law enforcement thing for the cover and stuff. Basically just saying, look, stop and smell the roses. Stop being so busy. There's a line in here, if I can find it here. Come on, baby, you've got to stop. Stop on the highway. Stop when you're in your car on that highway. Roll down your window. Look for a man in a Porsche and say, brother, let's go and walk. Let's go. Can you hear me? There was a movie called Network in 1976, and it starred William Holden and Faye Dunaway. Very good movie. And there was an anchor there who was going a little crazy, and he would say, just shout out your window and say, I can't take it anymore, just about your life. So stop and smell the roses, just saying that, that there's so many things that we pass up, that we're just so busy with our busy lives that we stop. We don't, sometimes we need to stop and remember what, the things that are important, our family, friends, and just living life. And I think that that's what this does. This was written by Harry Nilsson and Richard Starkey, which is Ringo. It sounds very vaudeville to me, kind of like a good show tune. Perfect number for this. I think it's a nice album track. All right, and then at the side B, it starts out with Dead Giveaway. Dead Giveaway is a Ron Wood song, really good tune. Ron Wood from the Rolling Stones. Very underrated tune. I was really shocked when I heard it. I was like, wow, this is a really good standout choice cut on this album. Like it a lot. Really nice. You Belong to Me is the next song. This is a George Harrison produced number. George Harrison plays lead guitar on here. George was always good at finding oldies, old cover tunes, and redoing them for him and for Ringo, especially during this period. Like Got My Mind Set on You. Perfect idea there. So this one was actually a really big hit in 1952. It was a #1 hit for Jo Stafford, who was a very popular female vocalist at the time. I like it, and the lyrics are cool. It says, see the pyramids across the Nile, see the sunset, see the pyramids across the Nile, see the sunrise on a tropic isle, just remember, darling, all the while, you belong to me. I like that. See the jungle when it's wet with rain. See the ocean from a silver plain. Just remember till you're home again, you belong to me. So a little over 2 minutes. They do a nice job here on that. Next song is called Sure to Fall. And this is a nice Carl Perkins song. If you remember, Carl Perkins was just, you know, the Beatles adored him, you know, like Buddy Holly, and they covered his songs. And Ringo often would sing these songs, like Honey Don't and Matchbox. So here he is doing another one as a solo artist. And this is a Paul McCartney produced number. I tell you, Ringo really needs to do another country album besides Kupuku Blues. This is pure country. In fact, you have a guy named Lloyd Green playing pedal steel guitar on here. You've got Paul playing bass and piano, which is nice, and Lawrence Juber is playing acoustic and electric guitars. And then, of course, you have, you know, the backing vocals from the same crew. Like it a lot. I think it's really good. Nice country number, and it's nice inclusion in here, putting it in here. It just kind of spices it up a little bit, something a little different. You've Got a Nice Way is a really nice song from Stephen Stills from Crosby, Stills, Nash & Young, and Michael Sturgis. I like it. It's just a nice tune. It's You've Got a Nice Way. And Ringo is able to carry the tune real well and does a good job. All right, last song on the album is called Back Off Boogaloo. Back Off Boogaloo is a remake of his 1972 big hit. It's interesting. It's like, well, why would he redo it? I don't know, but you know what? I heard it on the radio way before this, and I thought, yeah, it sounds good. I heard it on the Beatles channel. It starts out with It Don't Come Easy, the music of it, and then it goes into the song. But then in the background, Harry Nilsson is producing this one. Harry Nilsson sings some of the Beatle lyrics to other songs, like With a Little Help from My Friends. You've got Help. You've got Good Day Sunshine. And then you've got Baby You're a Rich Man. And I think they pull it off really well. They do a good job with it. All right, so now we're going to talk briefly about the bonus tracks. The first song is called Wake Up. This is a Richard Starkey Ringo song. I don't know why it wasn't on there. I think it's a nice number, but I can understand them wanting to limit it to 10 songs. That was fine. This was a Stephen Stills produced song, and then Red and Black Blues is another really good number. This should have been on the album. I think it's very underrated, and it's unfortunate that it was unreleased all these years. This was also produced by Stills. Then you've got a song called Brandy, which is not The Looking Glass, Brandy You're a Fine Girl. And this one was produced by Wood, Ron Wood. I like it, it's good. I mean, you know, I think it would have been fine on the number, on the album. Then you have an original vocal version of Stop and Take the Time to Smell the Roses. I don't really hear too much of a difference, but, you know, maybe with repeated listens. And then You Can't Fight Lightning, which was the Paul McCartney produced number. And it's more of kind of a rhythm, you know, it's like, you can't fight lightning. And Ringo is singing very minimal on the vocals. There's not a lot of lines or anything. Longer number, it's over 5 minutes long, 5.5 minutes and plus. It's good. It would have been a nice bonus, like a B-side. And originally the album was going to look like that. Like I said, that was going to be there, the album cover. And the track listing was going to be Attention, Private Property, You've Got a Nice Way, Wake Up, which was the one they took off, You Can't Fight Lightning, they took off, Rack My Brain, Dead Giveaway, Brandy, they took off, You Belong to Me, and Stop and Take the Time to Spell the Roses. So that would have been the original track listing for Can't Fight Lightning. But they decided against that and did the Stop and Take the Time to Smell the Roses. Stop and Smell the Roses. And then there's also a curious one, handgun promos. And this was Harry Nilsson. I think he's talking to Harry Nilsson. There was, Harry was a big advocate of, you know, handgun control. And I think this came about because of his friend John Lennon being shot and killed. I think that's what brought it on. So I think these promos were recorded, you know, in 1981. And Ringo is doing this as a favor, basically just doing these announcements, these public service announcements to, you know, be careful, and did you know these many people die from handguns, and, you know, be careful, that kind of thing. And at the end, he's saying to Harry, you know, this is no laughing matter. And, you know, we're not joking about this, so, you know, hopefully these spots will help you. So on a rating of 1 to 10, 10 being the best, what would I give this album? I would give it a 7 out of 10. I think it's that good. I think it's a good album, and I think it's worth listening to. And if you haven't picked up one of the record store day releases of this album. So thank you very much. You have a great day. Bye.